Work like this? Consider it charity." The young woman tore the check in half and dropped it on the garage floor. Her heels clicked as she walked back to her SUV. Daniel stood frozen, oil still on his hands. Behind him, his 12-year-old son Tyler gripped his backpack, staring at the torn paper. The engine he'd just repaired hummed perfectly in the luxury car. 4 hours of work, fixed what 3 dealerships couldn't. And she called it charity. If you were him, would you stay silent or demand your dignity back? The coffee maker sputtered in the corner of the small kitchen. Daniel poured 2 cups, set one in front of Tyler, and started packing lunch into a worn container. The morning light came through a window that needed cleaning. Tyler pushed cereal around his bowl. "Dad, why don't you open a bigger shop?" "Like Uncle Ray's place downtown?" Daniel smiled while sealing the container. "Bigger shops mean bigger problems. We're doing fine. But you're really good at fixing things. Being good at something doesn't mean you need a billboard about it." Tyler went quiet. Daniel ruffled his son's hair and handed him the lunchbox. After Tyler left for school, Daniel walked across the yard to the garage. The sign above the entrance read, "Precision Auto Repair," in faded letters. The paint had been peeling for 3 years. The left corner showed a dark scorch mark that Daniel never explained to anyone. Inside, the space smelled like motor oil and old metal. Tools hung on pegboards in exact order. A sedan sat on the lift, waiting for brake work. Daniel had owned this shop for 8 years. Before that, he didn't talk about. He spent the morning on the sedan. The work came naturally. Listen to the engine, feel the resistance in the bolts, know what's wrong before the diagnostic computer confirms it. Around noon, Mrs. Patterson from 2 blocks over pulled into the driveway. Her station wagon had been making a grinding noise for a week. Daniel wiped his hands and walked over. "Let me take a look." It took 15 minutes to find the problem. A worn belt tensioner. He replaced it with a spare part from the shelf and test drove the car around the block. Smooth. Quiet. Mrs. Patterson tried to hand him $40. Daniel shook his head. "Your daughter lent Tyler her textbook last month when he forgot his. We're even." "Daniel, you can't keep doing this. I can do what I want in my own shop." She smiled and drove off. Tyler came home that afternoon and dropped his backpack by the workbench. He pulled out a small notebook, flipping through pages of sketches and diagrams. Daniel glanced over. "Still drawing engines?" "Yeah. I found this in your toolbox last week." Tyler held up an old leather journal. The cover was cracked. Inside were technical drawings, handwritten notes, and calculations. On the first page, faded ink read, "Engineer Daniel Graves, Hybrid Propulsion Project, 2010. Daniel took the journal gently. "That's old stuff. Don't worry about it." "But Dad, these designs are really cool. Why don't you use them anymore?" "Things change, buddy." Tyler looked like he wanted to ask more, but didn't. Daniel set the journal on a high shelf, out of reach. That evening, Daniel made spaghetti while Tyler finished homework at the kitchen table. The routine was steady, predictable, safe. Tyler looked up from his math sheet. "Dad, do you ever miss your old job?" Daniel stirred the sauce. "I like what I do now." "But you were an engineer. That's bigger than fixing cars, right?" Daniel turned off the stove. He sat across from Tyler. "Being an engineer means you work for people who make the big decisions. Fixing cars means I make my own decisions. I know which one lets me sleep better." Tyler nodded, not fully understanding but accepting it. Outside, the sun dropped below the roofline. The shop sign creaked slightly in the wind. Then headlights swept across the driveway. A black SUV pulled up and stopped in front of the garage door. The engine shut off. A car door opened. The woman who stepped out wore a tailored black blazer and heels that didn't belong on gravel. She looked around the shop yard with the expression of someone who had taken a wrong turn but was too proud to admit it. Daniel walked out, wiping his hands on a rag. "Can I help you?" She glanced at him briefly. I need my car fixed. Today. What's the problem? The engine vibrates when I accelerate. I took it to 3 dealerships. They all said I'd have to wait 2 weeks for parts. She gestured toward the SUV. I don't have 2 weeks. Daniel moved toward the vehicle. Mind if I take a look? She tossed him the key fob without answering. Her phone was already out, and she was typing something with sharp, quick motions. Tyler stood near the garage entrance watching. Daniel popped the hood. The engine was clean, expensive, and complicated. He started it up and listened. The vibration was subtle but present. He checked the diagnostic port with a handheld scanner. 2 fault codes: oxygen sensor malfunction, ignition coil degradation. He walked back over. It's the O2 sensor and one of the coils. I can fix it with compatible parts I have in stock. Should take about 4 hours. The woman finally looked up from her phone. 4 hours? The dealership said it was a major issue. It's not major. It's just specific. And you're sure you can do this? Her tone carried doubt. This isn't some domestic sedan. Daniel met her eyes. I'm sure. She studied him for a moment, then shrugged. Fine. But if it's not perfect, I'm not paying. She walked to the side of the yard, made a phone call, and spent the next 10 minutes talking loudly about quarterly projections and distribution contracts. Daniel got to work. Tyler brought him a bottle of water an hour in. Dad, is she always like that? Some people are. She didn't even say thank you. Daniel adjusted a wrench. Not everyone does. The work took focus. The engine bay was cramped. The parts had to be installed in a specific sequence, or the computer wouldn't recognize them. Daniel had done this kind of repair dozens of times, but never on a vehicle this new. He made notes in a small pad as he went. Torque specs, sensor voltages, details that mattered. By late afternoon, the job was done. Daniel test drove the SUV through the neighborhood. The vibration was gone. The engine ran smooth and responsive. He pulled back into the driveway and shut it off. The woman ended her call and walked over. Is it finished? Yes, everything's working. She got in and started the engine. Listened. Revved it slightly. Her expression didn't change. She pulled out onto the street, drove 2 blocks, then returned. She stepped out and finally nodded. It's fine. Daniel pulled a small invoice pad from his pocket and wrote down the labor and parts. $500. She looked at the number, then at him, then at the shop behind him. 500. Her voice was flat. Yes. She opened her purse and pulled out a checkbook. She wrote quickly, tore the check free, and held it out. Daniel reached for it. She tore it in half. The 2 pieces fluttered to the ground between them. Work like this? Consider it charity. She dropped the checkbook back in her purse. You should be grateful I even stopped here. Daniel stood still. His hands didn't move. His face didn't change. Tyler stepped forward. Dad fixed your car. You have to pay him. She glanced at the boy, then back at Daniel. Maybe teach your son how the real world works. She got in the SUV, started it, and drove away. Daniel stared at the torn paper on the ground. Tyler bent down and picked up the pieces, fitting them together. The name on the check read, Olivia Brennan. Tyler looked up. Dad, why didn't you say anything? Daniel finally moved. He took the torn check and folded it into his pocket. Because saying something to people like that doesn't change anything. But his son's face said otherwise. That night, Daniel made grilled cheese sandwiches. Tyler sat across from him, barely touching his food. You should have said something. Daniel set his sandwich down. What would I have said? That she was wrong, that you did good work. I know I did good work. I don't need her to tell me that. Tyler's voice got louder, but she acted like you're nobody. Daniel reached across the table and put a hand on his son's shoulder. People like her think they're better because they have money. Getting angry doesn't fix that. So we just let her win? She didn't win, she just drove away. Tyler pulled out his phone. I recorded it. Daniel's hand stopped. You what? When she tore up the check, I had my phone out. I got the whole thing. He turned the screen toward his father. The video was shaky but clear. Olivia's voice came through. Work like this? Consider it charity. Daniel watched the clip twice. His jaw tightened. We should post it, Tyler said. People need to know what she did. No. Why not? Because putting her on the internet doesn't get us paid. It just makes us look desperate. Tyler set the phone down. Then what do? Daniel stood and walked to the window. The shop sign was barely visible in the dark. He thought about the checkbook. The name, Olivia Brennan. He'd heard that name before. He went to the garage and opened an old filing cabinet in the back corner. Insurance papers, tax records, a folder from 12 years ago labeled Apex Automotive Group. He pulled it out and flipped through the pages. Employment contract, termination notice, a letter from HR that used words like breach of confidentiality and intellectual property violation. At the bottom of the folder was a company directory from 2010. He scanned the names, then stopped. Gerald Brennan, Chief Financial Officer. Daniel closed the folder. Tyler appeared in the doorway. What's that? Old paperwork. From your engineering job? Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at his son, then at the folder in his hands. Yeah. Is that where you knew her from? I didn't know her, but I knew her family. Tyler stepped closer. What happened back then, Dad? Daniel put the folder back in the cabinet. I got blamed for something I didn't do. Lost my job. Lost a lot of things. Is that why we don't talk about it? That's why. Tyler looked at the filing cabinet, then back at his father. But you didn't do it, right? No, I didn't. Then why didn't you fight it? Daniel locked the cabinet. I tried. No one listened. They stood in silence. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed faintly. Finally, Daniel spoke. Go to bed. We'll deal with this tomorrow. Tyler didn't move. Are you going to let her get away with it? Daniel met his son's eyes. I don't know yet. After Tyler went inside, Daniel stayed in the garage. He sat at the workbench and pulled out the torn check. He smoothed the pieces flat and taped them together. $500. Torn in half like it meant nothing. He opened a drawer and found a blank sheet of paper. He started writing. A complaint. A formal record of what happened. He addressed it to the local mechanics guild and the Consumer Protection Office. He signed his name at the bottom. Then he folded it, sealed it in an envelope, and set it on the desk. The next morning, he would mail it. Outside, a car passed by slowly. Headlights swept across the shop walls. Then it was dark again. Daniel mailed the complaint on Monday morning. By Wednesday, the phone stopped ringing. Mrs. Teacup Patterson called first. Her voice was apologetic. Daniel, I'm sorry. I saw something online about your shop. I just think, maybe I should take my car somewhere else for now. He thanked her and hung up. 2 more calls came that afternoon. Both cancellations. Tyler got home from school and found his father staring at the computer screen in the small office corner of the garage. A social media post was open. It had been shared 400 times. The post showed a photo of Daniel's shop, the paint peeling, the cracked concrete, the faded sign. The caption read, "Warning. Shady mechanic tried to overcharge me $500 for basic work, then filed a fake complaint when I refused to pay. Avoid this place." The account belonged to Olivia Brennan. Tyler read it over his father's shoulder. That's not what happened. Daniel scrolled through the comments. Most of them sided with her. A few people mentioned that the shop looked run down. One person said they'd heard similar stories about backyard mechanics. Dad, we have to say something. We have to post the video. Daniel closed the laptop. Not yet. Why not? Because going back and forth online doesn't prove anything. It just makes noise. But people believe her. Daniel stood and walked to the workbench. He picked up a wrench and turned it over in his hands. People believe whoever sounds more confident. That's not the same as being right. Tyler's phone buzzed. He looked at it, then put it away quickly. Daniel noticed. What was that? Nothing. Tyler. The boy sighed. Some kids at school saw the post. They're asking if it's true. Daniel set the wrench down. He wanted to say something reassuring, but the words didn't come. Instead, he walked outside and stood in the driveway. The sun was still out, but the air felt heavier. A week passed. No new customers. The savings account had enough to cover 2 more months of rent, maybe 3 if they were careful. Tyler started coming home quieter. He didn't talk about school. He didn't ask about the shop. He just did his homework and went to his room. On Friday, Daniel received a letter from the Mechanics Guild. They acknowledged his complaint and said they would review it. The process could take 4 to 6 weeks. That night, Daniel opened the filing cabinet again and pulled out the old folder. He flipped to the termination letter from Apex Automotive Group. The wording was careful, professional. It didn't outright accuse him of anything, but it implied enough. He remembered the meeting, the HR director, the lawyers, the way they'd said his name like it was already a problem. We have evidence that proprietary designs were accessed from your workstation. I wrote those designs. The intellectual property belongs to the company. I'm not trying to take anything. I'm just doing my job. We've decided to part ways, effective immediately. He'd asked to see the evidence. They'd refused. He'd asked for a hearing. They'd said it wasn't necessary. 2 weeks later, his wife died in a car accident. He'd been too broken to fight, too tired to care about anything except keeping Tyler safe. Now, sitting in the same garage 12 years later, he realized something. The HR director's name had been listed at the bottom of that termination letter, supervised by Gerald Brennan, CFO. Olivia's father. Daniel put the folder away and locked the cabinet. He went inside and found Tyler on the couch, staring at his phone. Tyler, turn that off. The boy looked up. His eyes were red. Daniel sat next to him. What happened? Tyler handed him the phone. Another post. This one was from a classmate. It was a meme, a picture of a rusty car with the caption, "When your dad's a scam artist, but you still gotta get to school." Daniel deleted the app from Tyler's phone. You don't need to see that. Everyone at school already saw it. Daniel pulled his son close. I'm going to fix this. How? Daniel didn't answer, because he didn't know yet. That night, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't pick up. A man's voice came through. Low. Steady. Is this Daniel Graves? Yeah. Who's this? Someone who remembers you. We need to talk. The line went dead. The address came in a text message the next morning. No name. Just a location downtown and a time. 2 p.m. Daniel told Tyler he had a meeting. He didn't say what kind. The building was sleek, glass and steel. A sign near the entrance read, Ferrari Technical Division, North America. Daniel stood outside for a moment, checking the address twice. Then he walked in. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I'm here to see someone. I got a message. Before she could respond, a man in a button-down shirt appeared from a hallway. He was in his early 50s, graying at the temples, with the kind of posture that came from years of standing in boardrooms. Daniel. The man extended a hand. I wasn't sure you'd come. Daniel shook it cautiously. Do I know you? David Ross. We worked together at Apex, briefly. The name clicked. David had been a junior engineer on the hybrid project. Quiet, capable. One of the few people who hadn't looked at Daniel like a criminal during those last weeks. You called me last night. David nodded. Let's talk somewhere private. They walked to a conference room overlooking the city. David closed the door and gestured for Daniel to sit. "I'm the technical director here now," David said. "I've been following your situation." "How?" "The complaint you filed made it to a few inboxes, including mine." David pulled out a tablet and opened a file. "I also saw the social media posts. Olivia Brennan is well known in certain circles." Daniel leaned back. "She's Gerald Brennan's daughter." "She is. And she's currently a partner in our regional distribution network." David swiped through a few documents. "But that's not why I asked you here." He turned the tablet toward Daniel. On the screen was a technical schematic, a hybrid engine design, advanced, efficient, familiar. Daniel stared at it. "Where did you get this?" "From the archives. Apex Automotive, 2010. You were the lead engineer. I was also the one who got fired." David set the tablet down. "I know. And I know it wasn't your fault." Daniel looked up sharply. "Then why didn't you say something back then?" "Because I was 26 and terrified of losing my job." David's voice was steady, but tinged with regret. "I'm not proud of it, but I'm trying to make it right now." "How?" "Ferrari is expanding into hybrid technology for the American market. We need a consultant. Someone who understands the integration of electric and combustion systems at a street level." David slid a folder across the table. "We want you." Daniel opened the folder. Contract terms, salary projections, benefits. The numbers were more than he'd made in 5 years at the shop. "This is real?" "It's real, but there's a condition." Daniel's stomach tightened. "What condition?" "Olivia Brennan is on the board of the Regional Partnership Council. If you accept this position, you'll need to withdraw your complaint. Officially, Ferrari can't be seen choosing sides in a legal dispute involving one of our partners." Daniel closed the folder. "So I take the job and stay quiet. You take the job and move forward." "That's not the same thing." David folded his hands. "No, it's not. But it's the best option you have right now." Daniel looked out the window. The city stretched below, full of buildings where people made decisions that shaped other people's lives. He thought about Tyler, the school, the bullying, the empty driveway at the shop. "I need to think about it." "You have until Monday." David stood. "For what it's worth, I think you deserve this. You were right back then, and you're right now." Daniel stood as well. They shook hands again, and David walked him to the elevator. As the doors closed, Daniel caught his reflection in the polished steel. He looked older, tired, but still standing. When he got home, Tyler was sitting on the front steps. "How was the meeting?" Daniel sat next to him. "They offered me a job." Tyler's face lit up. "That's great." "Right? It's complicated." "Why?" "Because taking it means I have to drop the complaint. Pretend none of this happened." Tyler's expression shifted. "But that's not fair." "No, it's not." They sat in silence. The sun dropped lower. The shop sign creaked. Finally, Tyler spoke. "What are you going to do?" Daniel looked at his son, 12 years old, and already learning that fairness was a luxury. "I don't know yet." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the folder, the contract, the condition. And somewhere across town, Olivia Brennan was probably sleeping just fine. Daniel didn't give an answer on Monday. He asked David for more time. David said he'd try, but the offer wouldn't stay open forever. By Wednesday, things got worse. A man in a gray suit appeared at the shop just after noon. He handed Daniel an envelope. "You've been served." Daniel opened it. Legal paperwork. A civil lawsuit. Olivia Brennan was suing him for defamation and harassment. The claim stated that his complaint to the Mechanics Guild was false and malicious, and had damaged her reputation. The amount she was seeking, $50,000. Daniel read it twice. His hands didn't shake, but his breathing slowed. Tyler came out of the house. "Dad, who was that?" Daniel folded the papers and put them back in the envelope. "Nobody important." "Dad." Daniel met his son's eyes. "We're being sued." Tyler's face went pale. "For what?" "For filing the complaint. But you didn't lie. Doesn't matter. She has lawyers. I don't." That evening, Daniel called the number listed on the Guild's response letter. A woman answered and connected him to a volunteer legal aid service. The lawyer who called back was direct. "Mr. Graves, I'll be honest. You don't have much of a case for a countersuit. The burden of proof is on you, and unless you have documentation of the interaction, it's your word against hers. I have a video of the incident. My son recorded it. She tore up the check and said my work was charity." The lawyer went quiet for a moment. "That could help. But even with the video, defending a defamation suit is expensive. If you lose, you'll be responsible for her legal fees on top of the judgment." "So what do I do?" "You could settle, withdraw your complaint, issue a public apology, and she'll likely drop the suit." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And if I don't?" "Then you go to court. And unless you find a way to prove she's acting in bad faith, you'll probably lose." Daniel thanked her and hung up. Tyler was standing in the doorway. "We have the video. That proves she's lying." Daniel rubbed his face. "It proves she was rude. It doesn't prove defamation. That's not fair." "No, it's not." The next day, Daniel drove to Tyler's school. The principal had called that morning. There'd been an incident. Daniel sat across from her in a small office. Tyler sat next to him, arms crossed, staring at the floor. The principal folded her hands on the desk. "Tyler got into a fight during lunch. Another student made a comment about the situation with your business. Tyler pushed him." Daniel looked at his son. "Is that true?" Tyler didn't answer. The principal continued. "I understand this is a difficult time, but we have a zero-tolerance policy for physical altercations. Tyler is suspended for 3 days." Daniel nodded. "I understand. There's one more thing." The principal's tone softened. "Some of the parents have expressed concerns about the online posts, about the lawsuit. They're worried about the environment it creates." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if this continues, it might be best for Tyler to transfer, for his own well-being." Daniel stood. "We'll handle it." He and Tyler walked to the car in silence. When they got in, Daniel turned to his son. "Why didn't you tell me it was getting that bad?" Tyler's voice cracked. "Because I didn't want you to feel worse." Daniel pulled his son into a hug. Tyler's shoulders shook. That night, Daniel sat in the garage with the lawsuit papers spread on the workbench. The deadline to respond was in 24 hours. He could accept the settlement. Apologize, move on. Or he could fight. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard you're in a tough spot. Walk away now, and this all goes away. Keep pushing, and it gets worse. Your choice." Daniel stared at the screen. Then he blocked the number. He opened the filing cabinet and pulled out the old folder again. The termination letter, the company directory, the designs he'd created. Then he saw something he'd missed before. A small USB drive taped to the inside cover of the folder. He'd put it there 12 years ago and forgotten about it. He pulled it free and plugged it into his laptop. The drive was old. The computer took a minute to recognize it. When it finally opened, a folder appeared. Inside were design files, source code, technical notes, all time-stamped, all authored by him. His heart pounded. The metadata was intact. The files proved he'd created the hybrid engine designs, not the company. Him. But the drive was corrupted. Half the files wouldn't open. Daniel stared at the screen. He had 18 hours to respond to the lawsuit, and the only evidence that could save him was locked inside a broken USB drive. He grabbed his keys. Daniel found a data recovery specialist in a strip mall 20 minutes away. The sign in the window said, "Same-day service." He walked in carrying the USB drive like it was the last thing in the world that mattered. The technician was younger than Tyler. He plugged the drive into a diagnostic machine and shook his head after 30 seconds. "This thing is ancient. The controller chip is fried. I can try to recover the data, but it's going to take time." Daniel leaned on the counter. "How much time?" 48 hours. Maybe more. "I need it in 12. The technician looked up. "That's not possible. I'll pay double. It's not about the money. The process takes as long as it takes." Daniel pulled out his wallet and set $800 on the counter, everything he had left in cash. "Please." The technician looked at the money, then at Daniel. "I'll do what I can, but I'm not making promises." Daniel left the drive and walked out. His hands were shaking now. He sat in the truck for 10 minutes before he could turn the key. When he got home, Tyler was waiting on the couch. Did they fix it? Not yet. When? Maybe tomorrow. Maybe never. Tyler's face fell. "So what do we do?" Daniel sat next to him. "We wait." That night, Daniel lay awake staring at the ceiling. The lawsuit response was due at 9 a.m. the next day. Without the files, he had nothing. With the files, he might have a chance. He thought about the settlement offer. Apologize. Withdraw the complaint. Walk away. He thought about Tyler's face at school, the suspension, the transfer suggestion. He thought about the shop, the faded sign, the years of work that no one noticed. At 3 a.m. his phone rang. It was the technician. "I got most of the files. The metadata's intact, but some of the design schematics are still corrupted. I can't guarantee they'll open. Can you send me what you have? I can burn it to a new drive. You can pick it up at 6. Daniel was there at 5:45. The technician handed him a small flash drive and refused to take any more money. "Good luck with whatever you're dealing with." Daniel drove home and plugged the drive into his laptop. The files opened one by one. Design documents, technical notes, source code, all stamped with his name, all dated from 2010. But 3 key files wouldn't open. The ones that showed the final integration specs. The proof that the project had been completed under his direction. He tried recovery software. He tried opening them in different programs. Nothing worked. At 8:30, his phone rang. David Ross. "Daniel, I heard about the lawsuit. Are you okay?" "Not really. Listen, the offer is still on the table. But if you want it, you need to decide today. Olivia's pushing the board to pull out of any association with you." Daniel looked at the laptop screen, the corrupted files, the incomplete evidence. "I need more time. I don't have more time to give." "Then I guess I don't have an answer." David's voice softened. "I'm sorry. I really am." The call ended. At 8:50, Daniel opened his email and began typing a response to the lawsuit. He attached the recovered files. He explained the timeline. He laid out the facts as clearly as he could. But without the final files, it wasn't enough. And he knew it. He looked at Tyler, who was sitting across the table eating cereal before school. "Tyler, I need to tell you something." The boy looked up. "If this doesn't work out, we might lose the shop. We might have to move." Tyler set his spoon down. "Because of her?" "Because I didn't have enough proof." Tyler stood and walked over to his father. He put a hand on his shoulder. "Dad, you're the best mechanic I know, and the most honest person I know. If they can't see that, it's their problem, not yours." Daniel's throat tightened. He pulled his son into a hug. At 9 a.m., he hit send on the email. Then he sat back and waited. 2 hours later, his phone rang. It was the Guild's legal coordinator. "Mr. Graves, we've reviewed your submission. We're scheduling a hearing, 3 days from now. You'll need to be there." Daniel closed his eyes. "I'll be there." But he still didn't know if it would be enough. The hearing took place in a conference room at the Automotive Guild's regional office. Daniel arrived 30 minutes early, wearing his only dress shirt and carrying a folder with the recovered files. On one side of the long table sat Olivia Brennan and two lawyers in navy suits. On the other, Daniel sat alone. 3 guild board members and a mediator sat at the head. Olivia didn't look at him once. The mediator opened a binder. "We're here to address a complaint filed by Mr. Daniel Graves regarding unpaid services. Ms. Brennan has filed a counterclaim for defamation." Olivia's lawyer stood, silver-haired, confident. "Ms. Brennan is a respected board member of a major automotive distribution network. Mr. Graves filed a baseless complaint to extort payment for substandard work. This is harassment." He placed a screenshot on the table. Tyler's video. "Mr. Graves recorded this without consent. The so-called evidence shows nothing more than a disagreement over service quality." The mediator turned to Daniel. "Your response?" Daniel stood. "I fixed her car. She agreed to pay. Then she tore up the check and called my work charity. The car ran perfectly. She test drove it herself." The lawyer smiled. "Your definition of perfectly may differ from hers." Daniel set his folder on the table. "I have documentation, diagnostic codes, parts used, specifications. Everything was done correctly." He pulled out the termination letter from Apex Automotive. "I also have proof this isn't the first time the Brennan family destroyed someone's reputation." Olivia's head snapped up. Daniel placed the USB files on the table. 12 years ago, I was fired from a project I led. The reason was misuse of intellectual property. But these are the original design documents, all time-stamped, all authored by me. The executive who signed my termination was Gerald Brennan." Olivia's lawyer stood. "This is irrelevant." Daniel kept going. "It shows a pattern. Your client learned from her father that people like me don't matter, that you can take what we build and walk away." One board member leaned forward. "Are you accusing Ms. Brennan of misconduct?" "I'm saying she knew exactly what she was doing. Just like her father knew when he fired me." Olivia stood. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Daniel turned to her. "Then explain it." Her face tightened. "My father made a business decision. If you couldn't handle it, that's not his fault. I lost everything. My job, my reputation. My wife died 2 weeks later. I raised my son alone because your father decided I was expendable." The room went silent. Olivia's expression cracked. Uncertainty replaced confidence. "I didn't know about any of that." Daniel's voice dropped. "You didn't ask." The mediator called a recess. When everyone returned, he spoke. "Mr. Graves, your documentation supports your claim. However, the video presents legal complications. That said, Ms. Brennan's social media statements meet the threshold for reputational harm. We're recommending a settlement. Ms. Brennan will issue a retraction and pay the original invoice. In return, Mr. Graves withdraws his complaint." Olivia's lawyer started to object, but she raised a hand. "It's fine." She looked at Daniel. "I'll pay what I owe." Her voice was quieter now, almost tired. After the hearing, David Ross caught up with Daniel in the parking lot. "The offer still stands." Daniel leaned against his truck. "What about Olivia?" "She's stepping back from the partnership council. Her choice." Daniel looked at the building. "I need time to think." David handed him a card. "Call when you're ready." When Daniel got home, Tyler was waiting. "How did it go?" Daniel sat beside him. "She's paying what she owes, taking down the posts." Tyler grinned. "So we won. We got what we were owed." That evening, Daniel's phone rang. Richard Harrison, the HR director from Apex. "Mr. Graves, I saw the hearing notes. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Gerald Brennan told me to let you go. I didn't ask enough questions. Daniel looked at his shop sign through the window. I appreciate you saying that. It doesn't fix anything. No, but it means something. 2 days later, a check arrived. $500. Olivia's signature at the bottom. Daniel deposited it and paid the shop rent. The following week he called David Ross. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. Name them. I keep the shop open. I'll consult part-time. And I want to run a free training program for people who want to learn the trade. We can make that happen. Ferrari has community outreach funding. One more thing. I want Olivia Brennan in the first session. David laughed. You're serious. She needs to understand the work, not just manage it. 2 weeks later, the first training session opened. 12 people signed up. Olivia was one of them. She arrived in jeans and a plain shirt. No heels. No lawyers. Daniel handed her work gloves. You'll need these. She took them without arguing. The session covered basic diagnostics, reading engine codes, identifying worn parts, asking the right questions. Olivia stayed quiet and worked. By the end, her hands were streaked with grease. As people left, she stayed behind. Daniel was putting tools away. I didn't know, she said, about my father, about what he did to you. Daniel set down a wrench. I believe you. Does that make it better? No, but it's a start. She nodded and walked to the door, then stopped. Thank you for letting me be here. Tyler appeared from the office after she left. Think she'll come back? Maybe. Outside, the shop sign creaked in the wind. The paint was still peeling, but it didn't look as worn. 6 months later, the shop sign had been repainted. Precision Auto Repair in bold letters. Underneath, where skill meets respect. 20 people had completed the first training course. 8 already had jobs. Daniel split his time. 3 days a week with Ferrari, 4 at the shop. Tyler helped after school, running diagnostics and organizing tools. He still talked about becoming an engineer. On a Saturday, a young man approached. Is this the place that teaches for free? Daniel slid out from under a car hood. Next session starts in 2 weeks. Sign up inside. The young man nodded. My mom said you stood up to some rich lady. Daniel smiled. I asked to be paid for my work. That's cool. Not everyone does that. They should. That evening, Daniel and Tyler ate spaghetti. Tyler had cooked. Dad, do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd taken the settlement? Daniel set his fork down. Sometimes. Would it have been easier? Probably. Do you regret not taking it? No, because you would have learned the wrong lesson, that staying quiet keeps you safe. It doesn't. It just makes you smaller. Tyler smiled. You sound like a teacher now. I am a teacher now. On Sunday, Daniel drove to the community center. Olivia was there, setting up workstations. She'd been volunteering for 3 months. She waved. We're short on Torca wrenches. I'll bring extras. After the session, Daniel locked up and drove home. He thought about the last 12 years. The loss. The fight. Tyler. The shop. The students. When he pulled into the driveway, Tyler sat on the front steps. Someone called about writing an article for a local magazine. Daniel sat beside him. What did you tell them? I said I'd ask you. Daniel looked at the shop. Tell them okay, but focus on the students, not me. Tyler nodded. People are going to call you a hero. Daniel shook his head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mechanic who didn't want to be forgotten. That's pretty heroic. Daniel put an arm around his son. They sat in the quiet, watching the last light fade. Inside the shop, the old leather journal sat on a shelf. The designs were still clear. The scorch mark on the sign had faded, but remained visible. Some things you carry. Some things you let go, and some things you turn into something better.